we're back with part 3 of this week's YAWA. I'm Kat, the dog trainer.
I am the guy with the pink gun, and these are our guests, Annie and Charles. If you didn't see the first 2 parts, go back and watch them, people. Come on
and subscribe so you don't miss them.
And hit the bell. Make sure you hit the bell over there.
Those are our bells.
I'm not really sure if it makes that noise on YouTube, but you should definitely push the button and find out.
So we had a ton of great questions. Like we mentioned before, probably at least 80. We've tried to get through as many as we can. And this time we're going to do a shotgun round of getting through as many questions as we can. We've kind of expounded
Shotgun.
Who gave him a microphone? We're going to try and get through as many questions. I think you're right. As we can so that we can get as many of these great questions answered as possible. So
As many.
if he keeps that crap up, we're not going to. So
You need to get an echo button on that thing.
No, that's a terrible idea.
okay, starting it off with Dakota Det 25 on Instagram. What is your go-to bird for training?
Boom.
Chucker.
I would go chucker.
And why?
I only get one.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the question.
What is your go-to? You only
That's
get
your answer. Your answer is chucker, and your reason is you only get one. That's it.
Pigeons and chucker if I can get 2.
No, you only get
one.
Okay, chucker.
Go-to bird.
They're
It would have to
terrible.
be a game bird. And
Yeah.
chucker sit well. They fly well. They're hardy birds.
If you
all
really
the
needed
things.
to, they swim decently. So if you
I mean,
needed to use them in the water, they do.
They do.
It's true. They swim pretty good.
Pigeons always flop back to the shore.
Chucker swim away.
Interesting.
Good to know.
So
If I have to pick one,
I think that I would honestly pick pigeons.
Wrong.
It
Homing
doesn't
pigeons?
It doesn't necessarily.
Cat, you're not wrong.
What
It's just
breed of
different.
pigeons?
You're not wrong. You're just not right.
Well, let me tell you my reason. I've actually got a good reason. You
I
guys are
wanna
like
hear it.
giving
I
your
wanna hear
crappy
it.
reasons. So I would probably pick a pigeon, and most likely it wouldn't be a homing pigeon because I wouldn't want to be shooting them. I would use just barn pigeons, feral pigeons, but I would still use those like I use my homing pigeons for my positive pigeon drill. So every time I throw a pigeon, I know I'm throwing $5 away, but hopefully you'd be able to accomplish what we're looking to accomplish in this drill with only a few of those pigeons being just thrown.
That's how I did my.
Because you didn't
puppy.
have homers at first.
Nope.
Yep. So
I remember you specifically calling me about this, and you're like, so how do I do this? Because I don't have homers. I'm like, you go get a bunch of feral pigeons.
And
you
to be
just
fair,
throw
they
'em.
were like $250 then.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah,
it was a much.
pigeons have got, everything's gone up, but pigeons have definitely gotten more expensive.
So I would still be able to use them for my positive pigeon drill. I'd be using them the same as I would my homers for starting pigeons and launchers, and I wouldn't be shooting those again. So I'd be letting the birds fly until my dog is showing me a solid point. Then I'd be able to start shooting those pigeons for the dog in launchers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would move probably to my formal low training so that I have that level of control. And then I'd take my dog hunting because then they'd get on game birds. And birds make a bird dog. And once that dog understands how pointing works and the importance of pointing and being able to be reinforced with the collar for that pointing, the first bird that they game bird, chucker, pheasant, quail, that they actually interact with in a hunting scenario, they're probably going to bump it. They're probably going to make a mistake.
I was just going to say, you better have some discipline because you're going to have to
Whoa.
watch
She
some.
said
training.
she was going to
Yeah.
training.
No, I'm saying you
myself,
personal
yes.
discipline. If you're going out opening day in the first with your new puppy and you
No,
see him working a bird, and
I
then it
would be
bumps,
thinking about this continuing in my training mentality.
Absolutely.
Of, my dog is going to learn to point on game birds by hunting them. And once they make a couple mistakes, I make some corrections. Then they're going to start recognizing that scent as being important. And they're going to point them. This has actually happened to me before. Similarly, at a test, I was actually prepping dogs for a test. I'd used chucker because that's what we had to train with. We don't typically get a lot of quail for NAVDA natural ability puppy training tests because most chapters use chucker. But I actually went to a Texas test and they had quail. And I was like, uh-oh. My dog's never
These
been on a
dogs
quail.
have never smelled quail.
And they're
before.
puppies. And they have pointed chucker, but not quail. So what's going to happen here? Well, I'll tell you what happened here. The first dog ran in, bumped her first quill, and I was like, ooh, this might not be good. She went in and pointed and slammed second, third, and fourth quill. So she made that recognition of this is a bird that I shouldn't have busted. I should have pointed. And she made that connection with one bird.
So you want pigeons. We get it.
Chucker.
I still am going to go with a chucker because I think that we can get more done in the field. So we have a dog that's a little bit, has a better foundation or understanding what's going on that did not involve launchers. If we have quality birds. Okay, fine. I go pigeons.
Ooh, did you really change?
Yeah, I changed.
You got him,
I go
Kat.
with pigeons. I'll go with a pigeon because I can control things to make it as realistic as possible with launchers and then put them on birds. Now, if I have to train dogs with just one bird, and
You're going to talk yourself back into Chucker.
No, I'm not. If I have to train with just one bird and it's my go-to, I'm going to definitely find somebody else to team up with that has access to another type of birds.
That is a
Well, that's
complete
so
cop
you need
out.
Chucker, pigeons. You're perfect.
Yeah, I'm not sharing my
It's a great
pigeons with
question.
you.
It's a great thing to think about. And definitely what it comes down to is you're going to need more than just one bird to get the job done.
So, moving on to our next question, because this is supposed to be a shotgun round of getting through these fairly quickly. Forever_GSPs on Instagram. Hey guys, I'm wondering about what your suggestions are on breeding times for dog heat cycles. How many heats do you wait between breedings and why? So this is a really good question, and I definitely think
There's
that
a ton of controversy around.
I was just going to say that. I think that
Absolutely.
if you ask 10 different breeders, you're probably going to get 10 different questions or answers.
And the dogs are different. We just bred one of our females on our third heat cycle, and she's 4.
Yep. And so there's a lot that goes into making decisions about breeding dogs. First of all, breeding dogs is not easy. Some people like to think that it is, but if you actually are truly trying to better the breed like we are, you're looking at health clearances for those dogs before you even get to the point of breeding. You're looking at testing those dogs through hunt tests to prove what they have the ability to do so that you can show that that's the potential of what their offspring is going to also produce. And you're looking at genetic pedigree programs to say these dogs are going to be good crosses for each other. And that's before you even do a breeding with those dogs. Typically, we wait until the dogs are at least around 2 years or have had a second heat cycle is our go-to answer for that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times the second heat cycle is when the dog is considered sexually mature. But if a dog cycles really early, I'm still not going to breed them at, and they have a 6-month cycle. She said an age, and there's a rough estimate around 2 years old, and I think that was all derived around OFA's testing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't be certified until the dog's 2 years. And there are some other tests out there now that are saying that they can get consistent results with things like hips, pen hip testing, before the dog is 2. So there are a few things in there that can come and play, but definitely the dog needs to be mature. And
We don't need puppies having puppies.
No, it's
And
not ideal.
not only are they physically and sexually mature, but also like mentally mature in a sense of they need to be able to be
Absolutely.
good mothers and care for those dogs
And on the flip
and those
side,
puppies.
for you, it's a big commitment. I mean, you have to be willing to lose that female. There's the potential for that. And
It's
so,
always there's always a risk. So
and
it's not
so-
like, oh, I'm just doing this because it would be fun to have puppies.
Pyometras or other uterine infections. We had one recently, and this was not us personally. We've been very fortunate not to have issues, but knock on something a bunch. We have some small issues, but nothing big. And this dog actually had uterine torsion. And almost died, lost the entire litter, and she almost died herself. So, and I asked Peter, you guys have met or seen him if you've watched some of the other videos, and he said that uterine torsion is extremely uncommon in dogs. It's more common, I think he said, in cats and maybe horses or something. But I think he said cats just because they're more nimbly bimbly. Nimbly bimbly. Nimbly bimbly.
Wasn't expecting to hear that tonight.
So with that, getting a mentor to help, reaching out to
Reaching
somebody
out
that
for
has done this
somebody.
before, if that's the breeder you got your puppy from, like
Please
it
don't
was for
breed
us.
just because you want your grandkids to experience
Right.
puppies. That's not a great answer.
Because
I
like
mean,
Charles said, you've got to be understand the risks that you could lose the entire litter of puppies. Some of the puppies, you could lose mom. Mastitis is always a risk of something that you can watch for. You need to watch for with your moms, as well as like preeclampsia with the moms.
preeclampsia would be milk fever, quote unquote, calcium deficiency.
Yep.
So these are all things that you have to watch for and be very aware of when you're looking at the potential of breeding dogs. But to get back to answering your actual question, we digress here about suggestions on breeding times for dog heats. Charles was saying, well, that depends on every dog because they bred some dogs at day 7. I've literally bred a few dogs at day 40 because their heat cycles
Is it
have
asking
kind of
breeding
split.
time, like when
Yep.
the dog?
Breeding times for dogs heats. And so that is a huge window of day 10, day 7,
really only one
day
way to know that
20,
answer.
day 40.
Progesterones.
Progesterones.
Run
It's
Yep.
the only
the
way you
blood
know.
work. Run the blood work.
Do not
Every
guess.
2
Science,
to 3 days.
people.
That's all you can do.
Science.
Yep.
Because especially a young male might be excited and try no matter what, or an experienced male, I
Or
should
a
say,
young male may
not.
not be interested, quote unquote, interested at all.
Because
and
they're not
she's-
I
truly
flipped that.
sure of
An,
what
an experienced male may just say, "Oh, yep, I know what to do."
Yeah.
and breed anything, whether she's truly prime time of breeding or not, whether she's actually ovulating or not. And then those young dogs that are inexperienced and unsure of what they're doing may not know when the dog needs to be bred, or the female might just not be super friendly. They get the name bitch for a reason sometimes, and they can give cues to that male of, you better not try and breed me because I'm not going to be happy about it. So blood work is your best indication of when that female is truly ready to be bred and is truly going to be ovulating. So running progesterone levels is our go-to. We've been very successful with running progesterones, and every once in a while something happens where a female doesn't take. And there's typically an extenuating circumstance about, why that didn't happen. But still, it's Mother Nature. It's just like people.
Yeah,
we don't get pregnant every time we try.
No, and that's it. It's Mother Nature, and it's Mother Nature on a drastically more primal way. I mean, it's if they're not able to get bred or something like that, I mean, there's usually a reason for it. It's just like there's a lot of things to talk about this. Specific timing, though, is important.
I have a feeling this one's going to spawn some more questions.
Yeah.
If you have more questions, throw them in the comments. We'll answer them
And
later.
How many heats do you wait between breedings and why?
Okay, so this one I have a really big opinion on. And the biggest thing is that when a dog goes into heat, their body says, I'm ready to have puppies. They pretend to have puppies, whether they get bred or not. And that includes dropping eggs. And if those eggs are not fertilized, they can become cysts and you can have all kinds of problems. Now, when the dog's body goes through an actual pregnancy, everything stretches out. This happens to women as well. They skip a cycle, everything tightens back up, and there are a lot of people and specifics that go around saying that it's easier for them to not actually tighten up and then stretch all the way back out and then tighten all the way back up and stretch all the way back out.
And have those eggs that are not attaching and creating cysts.
People also get surprised about falsies, right?
Yeah.
We get them. We have two that have them.
We have
every
two that
time.
get one every
Well, they're
single
going
time.
to. I
Yeah,
mean,
because
the-
their body is
the-
truly thinking it's
Yep.
pregnant every time it
Whether
has
it's
a heat
bred or
cycle.
not.
Produce milk, everything, the
Yep.
whole 9 yards.
100%.
Nesting,
it's-
all of it.
that would be more common than them not.
Right.
So the thing is, if you plan to breed, do it while they're early, while they're younger, healthier, and then spay them. Be done with
Yes.
it. Don't go, oh, my dog's 9. I need to get puppies out of them now or something. It's
That's
not
the
ideal.
least
That's like,
healthy way to do it. It's the same
hard.
with women, waiting till we're
Sure.
much older to start having babies. I was going to say puppies. Is definitely
I mean, think
going.
about that as a 7 or 8-year-old dog. I mean, that's in the vicinity of 50 plus, 60
And there's definitely more
plus. I mean,
complications that can happen in those pregnancies
Yes.
and the health of the the dog is always our number one priority. So if we ever see litter sizes decreasing, moms having complications in those pregnancies, persistent mastitis, things like that, that's typically an indication to us that they should not be bred anymore, and we're going to retire them from our breeding program because, like we keep coming back to, every time you breed a dog, there's a risk that you could lose them. And if I'm seeing signs that breeding them is not going to be beneficial for their health and that it's going to be hard on them, I'm going to make the decision not to breed them anymore.
Perfect.
Okay, next question.
It's a great question. There's
There's a lot there.
There's a lot, and we could go into much more information. Like, not Ethan, Charles. Somebody said, if you are thinking of breeding, to seek a mentor. Was that you?
Yep.
Okay, I knew it was one of the guys. That
You will
would
have a
be
ton of questions, I promise.
from the breedings to the puppies. And we actually have a new series out right now that we're doing with the Muddy Benny litter, showing the development of puppies and newborn puppies through the entire 8 weeks that we have them. So that's a really great resource if you are thinking of having your first litter of puppies, to see, kind of an inside view of what we put into raising and developing a litter of puppies. So check it out. Can I ask another question?
Yeah,
Go for
let's
Okay,
go.
just making sure we have time. Next question from J_1080s. During the trained retrieve, can your dog still be a pet house dog, or should they be treated like a kennel dog where the only thing they get out for is bathroom and trained retrieve drills?
Well, that's not actually how our quote unquote kennel dogs or dogs here at the kennel are treated. So I don't know where that specifically comes from, but
Our dogs come in and hang out on the couch.
sure.
They
Yep.
come off the table, come out and hang on the couch. You just can't ask them to do the things that you're doing.
That you're
With
trying
the
to
trained
reinforce.
retrieve.
And I think that might be where they're going with it. There was another question very similarly to that question for Instagram, MoreXIII, or X the third. I don't know. If I butchered it, I'm so sorry. But they basically are talking about, it was a really long question, but they only do their trained retrieve for about 5 minutes a day, maybe twice a day. But they've noticed when they go out to the field with her and they start doing regular fetching drills where they throw the bumper out, she'll run back and sit by it. So I'm thinking that these are similar questions.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of the process.
When you're in
Yeah.
the middle of a trained retrieve process, you're
And we
breaking
did talk about this a little bit last week.
You're breaking that down into parts of a retrieve, of hold, of fetch, of the recall, and the polished presentation. And when you're doing that, you can't really ask those same behaviors out of your dog during just fun retrieves. So we recommend holding off doing any of the fun, just messing around retrieving drills until you've completed that trained retrieve. But that doesn't mean that they can't be part of the family.
No, it would be the equivalent or similar to of something. This would be a simple example. You're in the middle of trying to build a consistent recall with collar conditioning and whatever else, and you're like, all right, I've done a session or two, and the dog's pretty good in this really low distraction situation. Let's go to the dog park.
Or when they're puppies, if when they're puppies is working on bumper drive and excitement to retrieve, the bumper becomes the fun toy, and in this case of trained retrieve, it's the training tool. And so when they come back in the house, they just have bones and other stuff. You just don't work on that specific thing.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think we have time for one last question.
Sure, ask a couple more.
Ask a couple more.
Why not?
Why not?
We'll try to actually make them lightning.
Blair.Matthew88. Yeah, this isn't going to be a lightning one, but nice thought, Charles.
You picked the question.
I know. What goals did you guys set for yourselves creating the business you have now, and what were some of the difficulties that came with it?
I feel like you could do
Next
a
question.
whole
This is
session
definitely
on
not
this
going to
one.
be a lightning question.
Why did you pick that question? We had lots of goals. One of them was to keep the lights on and feed ourselves. Then
That is
after
one heck
that,
of a goal.
hey, that's where it started.
Check.
Okay.
Yeah.
check.
As far as goals go, I think the biggest thing for me from a business standpoint is to be as honest and have integrity in business and My goal is to do the best that I can with what we're doing for people. And when we do that, everything else seems to fall into place. So,
yep. And I would just say that the biggest struggle that we've probably had is when we started our business. It was just Ethan and I, and dogs don't scoop their own poop. They don't feed themselves. They don't let themselves out to go to the bathroom, and they definitely don't train themselves. So finding a balance between kennel life and our family life was our biggest struggle, especially for a very long time. We didn't have the resources to be able to have full-time employees. We didn't have the people to pull from where we were living. We were pretty much in the middle of nowhere, so there weren't a lot of options. Charles actually came and worked for us for a while. We stole him from Iowa, and then Annie stole him back. So
Sorry.
You did have 2 horses, goats. You had a lot going on.
we had a lot going on. No children yet, though, so we waited for
man.
that to happen until we were in a little bit different position in our lives. But having just a way to balance work and family life was our biggest struggle, and that has changed, and it's been a really good change for us.
Especially because you have to care for the dogs
Yeah,
24/7.
24/7.
They're the most important part of the whole thing. So
There's no days off.
Right. You can't just go, oh, well, we're going to run over and see my mom for the day. You can't do that because you have puppies that can't hold their bladder for more than 4 hours. You have everything has to revolve around the dogs. And so
And their schedule and their
it takes
routine.
a lot to finally get to a point where you can not do that. For us, we
sure.
take them with us. I mean,
And
we
that's
just
where
have to
we were
bring them
at for a
everywhere.
very long time.
6 dogs, they all just come with us, and if we gotta let them out to potty, that's what we do. So.
Yep.
Yeah. And we definitely had the same situation of, if I was living, or we were living in Kansas, my family was in North Dakota, that's not a 4-hour round trip, I will tell you that. So if I wanted to go see my family, I went and saw my family, and Ethan stayed back and held down the fort, vice versa. His family was in Kansas City. We were on the complete western side of the state. So just getting there was over 5 hours. Again, not a 4-hour round trip. So he went to see his family. So we didn't get to do a lot of things together as a family. And that was difficult for those first 5 years of our business. And getting up, dogs need to be let out at 6 a.m. every day and let out last thing at 10 o'clock at night.
Well, I can
every single day.
Yeah, I can remember one time that you and I both got the flu.
Oh my gosh.
And a flu lasts 7, 10, 12, 14 days. And it was her and I. I mean, so you imagine having the flu, going and letting dogs out 4 to 5 times a day. And it's like, they can't sit for 7 to 10 days. So we're
Gotta
out
go do
training.
bird work.
Yeah, we vomited in between runs. This is probably more information you wanted. But
TMI.
I mean, it's like, all right, lay down in the truck for a little bit. Okay, let's go set some more birds. We'll go do another run. I mean, that was...
It really is 24/7, 365. Like, there is no
And
break.
it's tough to make those sacrifices, and that's what we had to do at the beginning because, I remember Ethan's little brother was getting married, and he was in the wedding, and I had to stay home. I couldn't go to their wedding, which, sucked. I mean, it did, but somebody had to take care of the dogs, and we weren't in a position yet that we had any employees. So Ethan went to his family's get together, his brother's wedding, and I, sent a card. And the same thing happened. My dad passed away, and that was in North Dakota. And luckily for that situation, Ethan was able to come with me, but we hauled a trailer full of 16 dogs up to North Dakota to take care of, so that we could do that. So there's
And then
always...
my dad into taking care of some of the rest of them.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
a
couldn't
few
take
of them.
all of them with us, so he actually came out and babysat dogs at the kennel for the 3 days that we were gone for funeral and preparations and family time. So those are the types of things that were really tough, and we had to make sacrifices in the beginning of growing our business, and that we felt were necessary sacrifices that we are glad that we were able to make then, that got us to the place where we're at now, where we do have, we have 6 employees right now that are able to help take care of dogs, give us the flexibility to sit here and do these YAWA videos and some other training videos, go to some shows, and then
Because it's time for let out.
Exactly.
We have dogs in the dog box right now that we're going to let out when we're done here.
And there's always the ability to grow, and that has allowed us to do more with our business than we ever thought was possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for being on our show this time
Thanks
with
for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And go walk your dogs.
We're going to use your exercise bed.
Thank
It's
you.
got a big bright light.
That'll make it easier. You put that light up for us.
Hey guys, thank you everybody for tuning in this week. We appreciate y'all. We appreciate your questions. And definitely, again, if this is your first time to the channel, this is your first time watching our show, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. Guys, I am the guy with the pink gun.
I'm Kat the dog trainer.
These
I'm
are our
Annie.
guests.
Yeah.
I'm
Annie.
Charles.
And we will
Cut
catch
us
you
off.
next time. Goodbye.